Welcome back. The president's immigration crackdown stoking fears in many communities, especially the ones with large immigrant populations. Now, political journalist and author Dominic Carter, he spoke with a local congressman who is dealing with those fears on the ground. Adriano Espillat not only represents a whole bunch of immigrants in his district, he himself is the first Dominican-American congressman to serve. Dominic?
Well, good evening to you, Richard. The congressman had some very strong words for President Trump and also some great insight into the human impact his immigration order is taking. Congressman, describe what it's like for so many living in the shadows.
Well, what I hear recently, stories of folks that don't come out during the daytime, that don't wander outside of their household to go shopping or to go anywhere in their neighborhood because of fear that they could be stopped at any time, processed and deported. They come out during the evening, during the night, in the shadows, in the dark. And so this is a traumatic traumatic experience. I call it a post-Trump traumatic syndrome that has spinned the country and spiraled out of control, where neighborhoods and people are just scared. Even people with documentation that look a certain way and speak a certain way, may have a certain accent or worship a certain God, may feel that they can be a target at any time. So this is pervasive, I think, across America, and it has been generated by the president's actions.
So, Congressman Espillat, you had to leave the country and then properly come back. Trump supporters will say that's what everyone should do.
Well, you know, not everyone has a family member to sponsor them. Not everyone has the ability to submit an affidavit or a petition to be let in the country with documents. It's a process, and people really what they want is they have aspirations. Everybody in the whole world, at one point more so then than now, the entire world wanted to come to America. You know, the story was that America was paved with gold streets and that it was the land of opportunity, and that once you passed by that lady in the harbor, there was no limitations to any possibility. And America was built with the entrepreneurship of immigrants, with the boldness of an immigrant that comes and works from sunset to sundown, that has no rest, that strives and dedicates and sacrifices his or her life for their children and their grandchildren. These folks that come from around the world, they don't really work for themselves. They work for their kids and their grandkids, who many of them are Americans, were born here. And so that's what this nation is about. So the question on the table right now is, are we giving up on the vision of our nation? Is this a change of course for our nation that now is going to be heavy-handed, punitive in its way to punish people, as opposed to being a nation of aspirations that people want to go because it lifts everybody up?
Congressman Espillat, what worries you the most about all of this?
What bothers me the most is not only the fear that it inflicts on people, but it's the racism that it unleashes across America. And folks out there may feel that they can do things that are illegal and harmful to human beings and get away with it because the atmosphere is very toxic right now, and it almost allows them to do that. And that's why I think you've seen an uptick in anti-Semitism. That's why I think you've seen an uptick in racial attacks. And that's why people are afraid. And so this is not an environment for a president to promote. It should be the other way around. It should be an environment of reconciliation. It should be an environment of tolerance.
So, Dominic, clearly this is an issue in his district and many districts in this country. But how does he feel beyond just this issue? Democrats as a party should deal with the president. Some say, you know what, obstruction wherever you can, take on this is almost an administration out of control. Others say compromise where you can. Let's not be the party of obstruction like Republicans were for 8 years. What does he say?
I'm glad you asked the question. Espillat, all you have to do, Richard, is look around his district, whether it's in Harlem or where we met with him in the Bronx or Fordham Road. You can see the immigrant community in full display. To answer your question directly, he feels no compromise at all with President Trump. He feels Democrats should be full throttle against the president, calling the president out at every step and every turn.
Let's stay in the city, Dominic, and pivot to the mayor. The mayor had a meeting today that few want. It's like getting root canal. When you meet with the U.S. Attorney Pripahar in his office, it's usually not for good reason. And he did it today under circumstances that had a lot of people, looking twice here because he had no promise of immunity, did he?
That's right. I'm glad you put it that way, Richard. The sitting mayor of the city of New York met on, if you will, neutral ground at the offices of his personal attorneys. But he testified to Mr. Bahara's prosecutors without immunity. So, and they're looking at his fundraising practices, whether they're quid pro quos, whether it was favorable treatment. But I'm glad you put the question that way because, Richard, this lasted for almost 5 hours today. And remember, as you well know, lying to the feds, not implying that that's what the mayor did, but lying to the feds, that alone can get you locked up in prison.
There's an expression, queen for a day. What that basically means is you can have this conversation, but whatever you say, you're granted immunity for. He didn't get that. So a lot of people were saying, maybe where there's some smoke, there's some fire here. People surprised a little bit that he went along with this. You wouldn't do this unless either you were trying to convince him to drop it already, or B, you figure you had nothing to lose.
Well, a lot of consultants that we have talked to on background believe it's a foregone conclusion that the mayor possibly may be indicted, and that this is a last-ditch effort because the consultants we talked to your point, they say they don't understand the logic. You don't sit down with a federal prosecutor, especially someone with the average of a Preet Bharara, who's been locking up elected officials quite a bit.
Obviously, it's an election year. This story will continue to follow. Dominic, thank you so much. All right, when we come back, former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell, ultimate Washington insider, respected on both sides of the aisle. He's going to join us to get some insight on what is going on in D.C. that he sees right now and the impact it could have far beyond our borders.